morning for our Facebook presentation, so she asked me to begin. You know, and it's really appropriate that I, your skeleton, begin because I am very intelligent. In fact, the topic of her lecture today is that bone is very intelligent tissue. Did you know, for example, that every minute there are 1 million spots in your body? Yes, I say 1 million, where cells are breaking down first old weak spots of bone, and then other cells called osteoblasts are building up new healthy bone in that same spot, so that your skeleton is strong no matter how much stress and strain you put on it. It's always renewing itself. And the most interesting thing about this is those bone building cells, when they get done building a new little spot of bone, they bury themselves into the bone and they become a whole new cell, sort of like the caterpillar and the butterfly story. They become a whole new cell, and that new cell is called osteocytes. And those osteocytes show you just how intelligent I, the skeleton, am. Osteocytes look like this. They're little cells that are buried in the bone, and they have these little tentacles coming out like an octopus. Those tentacles connect every osteocyte with every other, so to the effect that the whole skeleton is connected through these nerve endings. In fact, in your body you have 42 billion of these osteocytes, and you have practically 4 trillion of these little nerve endings that connect one of these bone cells to the other. And in fact, if you put these nerve endings all together, end to end, they would go halfway to the moon, just in one single human body. Those osteocytes, what do? They serve to tell one another where there's been damage to the body. If you hit your knee, a message is sent, we must repair that part of the bone. They sense what's happening all over the body. But even more than that, these very intelligent osteocytes also produce hormones. They receive hormones to regulate bone formation. They even have an impact on how your body will use energy. But we'll tell you more about that later. As a matter of fact, bone is so intelligent that I think we could say bone is smarter than you are. And let me say, I'm thinking that I'm going to tell Dr. Brown she should start giving you a few talks about the amazing wonders of the human body. Because the skeleton is very smart, but your whole body is also extremely smart. Hold on a second. I think I hear her coming now. Yes, I do hear her coming. She's coming right along. Hi, everyone. Hey, hi, everyone. This is Susan. I'm glad to catch up with you. And the skeleton, my skeleton friend, did a great job beginning with this talk. Because indeed, the skeleton is very intelligent, and it does many things for you that you might not realize. Some things you realize, some things you don't. And because it's Halloween, let's celebrate the skeleton. The first thing our skeleton does is infrastructure. It allows us to have rigidity, to have movement. It allows us to have all the fun in this physical body and being so flexible. The next thing that's really important is the skeleton provides a place for muscles to attach. If you think of a jellyfish, without any kind of skeleton, you can't have the muscles that allow for all this elegant movement. Just look at someone doing a beautiful dance. You'll see the magnificent organization that allows us to have such movement is all based on the skeleton. The skeleton also protects the internal organs. Take like your heart, your kidneys, your lung. We could easily die if those organs are damaged from a fall, from any blow, and so the skeleton is like your personal armor. Even more interesting to me is that the skeleton stores essential minerals. We think of calcium. 99% of the body's calcium is in bone. And that's because we need calcium on a minute-to-minute basis. Nature was very smart and said, we're going to use calcium to regulate blood heartbeat, to regulate nerve functioning, and we need to have the blood calcium be very stable. So nature filled the bones with calcium, so it's always available to put into the blood when needed. Equally, there's a lot of magnesium, potassium, sodium, even carbonate and citric. Bone is a storehouse for mineral. And it also is a storehouse for alkalizing compounds. Attached to those minerals are the substances such as carbonates, citrates. These keep the body chemistry in balance. Those of you that know our work here at the Center for Better Bones, you remember that we emphasize a lot pH balance and how we preserve bone when we keep an ideal pH balance, and how we drain bone if our pH gets too low, the metabolic pH, and we have to take the minerals and the alkalizing compounds from bone. You could look at it like bone is a gigantic reserve of alkalizing compounds to be used on a minute-to-minute basis to keep the pH stable. I've written a lot about it. I have a whole book on it, the Acid Alkaline Food Guide. You can find it on the website at betterbones.com. pH balance, very important role of bone. More important than structure, because you will die in a few minutes if your pH isn't precise. You also have probably known from high school that our bones help produce the red blood cells, 2 million a second. The bones, the skeleton, also produces many of the white blood cells in the bone marrow. Other white blood cells are made by the spleen and the thymus and the lymph nodes, but much of the immune system, much of the white blood cells are produced in the skeleton itself. And the skeleton also produces platelets to the astonishing figure of 4 billion an hour. I can't even count the 4 billion, probably in 10 lifetimes. But in 1 hour, our body produces 4 billion platelets right there in the marrow of the bone. And then one thing you probably didn't know about is you actually store heavy metals in bone, and they're sequestered there to keep them from doing more damage to the body. This is lead, cadmium, arsenic, mercury. Every time you chew on a little dental filling that's made of mercury, you liberate mercury into the body. Some of it is stored in bone. Most of the lead is stored in bone, most of the cadmium. And it's very interesting. As you lose bone, either in menopause or with pregnancy, you are liberating some of that lead, particularly those of us that grew up a few decades ago before leaded gasoline was outlawed, before lead paint was outlawed. We got exposed to a lot of lead. You get that lead in your body and it's really stored there. And it's stored in the bones. When you go through menopause, lead levels go up, and you see this very frequently. It certainly occurred in my own case. A storage of heavy metals to get them out of sight. And then, interestingly also, 10% of our fat cells are in bone. Bone serves as a reserve place to put fat, so that when there's a great energy need, there'll be some of it in bone to take. As we get older, just sometimes we notice our bodies get fatter. Well, our bones get fatter too. And there's this whole question of bone marrow fat and how that can benefit the body, and sometimes it's a problem because high bone marrow fat is associated with bone weakening. Then, bone is also an endocrine gland. When we think of endocrine glands, we think of the thyroid, maybe we think of the ovaries that produce hormones, but your skeleton, this lovely skeleton, also produces hormones. One of the popular hormones is called osteocalcin, and that's being discussed as a hormone that actually has a great deal to do with regulating how the body uses energy, regulating where fat deposits in the body, whether you develop body fat or not. It's shown that people who have low osteocalcin, which is produced by the bone cells itself, they have a greater risk of obesity. This is particularly very interesting, and you'll be hearing more about bone as an endocrine organ. And finally, let me say that as we just through this glimpse, we can see that skeletal health, the health of your bone structure, is linked to the health of the entire body. And everything you do to care for your bones is going to help to care for your entire body. And let me say, our skeleton is truly amazing. We always remember that if you have a weakness in your skeleton, if you have a fracture, if you have excessively low bone density, or if you're consistently losing bone, it's not that something has gone wrong with the body. It's just that we haven't given the bone the proper nourishment, the proper circumstance, so it can do all those other important jobs it has to do and also maintain our structure. So I wish you all my Facebook friends, a happy Halloween. Have a great time. As we enjoy today, let's also celebrate bone, our very intelligent bone.